Make homegrown home buying great again. We're going to give first home buyers the break they need to get into the market stage. Good evening, Johnny.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. You've been busy on the phone today selling properties to first home buyers.
I have been.
What
It's
is
been a very busy
the
day.
sentiment out there with the first home buyers? Are they cool cucumbers or nervous?
Definitely very nervous. You definitely see a lot of nerves and a lot of people not knowing what to do and asking the agents a lot of questions. So we're here today to kind of give you a bit of an insight. So you've got an idea rather than having to ask us all the questions all the time. You can go in knowing what you've got to do and kind of have those answers already for you.
Yeah, but you've been on the phone with a lady who's been in the market for 18 months.
Yep.
Year and a half, missed out on more than a handful of properties. What sort of questions is she asking, just briefly?
She's asking a lot of questions, really. In terms of just not knowing where everything is, being very bland to it all.
Yep.
Just realistically going, what's the owner want and where do I offer and that sort of thing and how much money do I have to spend and do I do my due diligence first or do I do a 5-day cool off, that sort of thing. So pretty much all questions you could imagine with first home buying. She's been looking for 18 months and still asking those questions. So they definitely come up a lot.
Yeah, okay. We'll come back to the tips and tricks in just a moment. But first of all, let's have a look at the numbers because they are absolutely staggering. I mean, in some cases, they're almost heartbreaking. What we've got here for you guys is a quick infographic as to what it takes to be a first home buyer in our major sort of capital cities. It's taking 46 years for the average school leaver to save for a deposit, a 20% deposit, that is. Absolutely crazy. I mean, you look at the ratio of income to expenditure then on a mortgage, like house repayments, are sitting at nearly 127%, double your income. Apartments not that much better, 54%. But this is based on Domain's average Sydney house price of just over $1.6 million.
Yeah, which is quite scary to look at, to be honest. I don't think any of us really thought that number was so high, but I mean, 46 years is a very long time. By the time you leave school and 46 years comes along, you're almost 60, and then, that's when you're buying your first home. So it's kind of a scary thought, isn't it?
Yeah, and keep in mind that this is, on an average income for an average Sydney property. Obviously, there's going to be properties lower and higher than this, but 46 years to save for a 20% deposit in Sydney, as low as 11 years in Darwin. We're not talking short amounts of time here. I mean, and apartments are not that much shorter. So it's really, really staggering to see these numbers released and, talk about it today. The other thing we want to touch on is the trajectory that Sydney house prices have taken since the 70s, when our parents probably were looking at their first home. There's just been an insane run in the market to the point now where a lot of people coming out of school and university feel like it's unaffordable. We're going to talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I think looking at that graph there, you can see the heavy increase that it's had over the years, and you can only see it's only really going up. So I think at the moment it's definitely high, but that graph only looks like it's going up from our end. And realistically, the average price for a house is definitely going to go up, and those years are just going to get longer for people coming out of school.
Yeah, the average first home buyer we typically deal with in the Northern Beaches, and it will change from suburb to suburb and region to region in and out of Sydney, would probably be in their mid-30s to 40 as an individual, and couples sometimes a little bit younger, but obviously two incomes. 35, 40 years old is certainly older than what you might think, but that's certainly very normal. And the average it's taking seems to be getting older and older. And you can understand why when prices continue to get higher and higher. But not only that, people are battling with Sydney rents. This is a really, really interesting one as well. You can imagine whilst you're trying to save for a deposit, even if you're saving really aggressively, trying to put away all your spare cash, rents haven't got any cheaper. And as those costs have gone up, you've got additional expenses. So the first one is Sydney house rents and then Sydney units. But there was about a 2 to 3 year period where there wasn't much growth during COVID mainly. And on the back of it, we've had a sharp increase, which is basically caught up to a lot of homeowners' expenses, mortgages, interest rates, repayments. A lot of those have been the driving force behind the sharp increase we've seen. What do you reckon? Where's it going, Johnny?
Where's it going? It's only going up in my eyes personally. I think the market's definitely picking up, and it's realistically only going to keep going up. We saw a peak in when COVID was happening, really, in that 2021, 2022 period. The market kind of sat for a little bit, and now it looks like it's on its way up again, and I think it's just going to continue to do so.
Yeah, and I think population is going to be a little bit to do with that as well. Go back to the start here. You'll see that blue line is the direction population is taking over the next 50 odd years, going into 2072. They reckon over 8 million people in Sydney alone. There's going to be more competition. More competition, generally speaking, means, prices will continue to go. So what's the end goal? I guess as a first home buyer, you're going to want some answers. How do you get into the market right now? We've got a few tips and tricks.
Yeah, we've got a few up our sleeve.
Far away. Give us one.
So in the graph, it said you do to save up for a 20% deposit. So we'd just like to start off with the fact that you don't need a 20% deposit.
Yeah.
You can definitely work around it. And I mean, we're seeing as little as 5% deposits at the moment for quite a few transactions, which kind of gives you a little bit of a head start. You're not saving that 160 grand or whatever it may be. You're saving a little bit less and you're able to actually get your foot in the door a little bit quicker. So I think that's definitely a good tip.
Yeah, absolutely. Tip number 2, look at if you can get some help financially or non-financially. A couple of examples. One, having a home loan guarantor. Could be mum and dad, could be a family member of any kind, really, that has an existing mortgage. They don't need to financially give you any money, but if they can put you down if you can go down as a guarantor, you can use some of their equity to use that as collateral against your loan. After 20% of that deposits, after 20% of equity is built into the loan, they come off, which is a really, really nice way for them to sort of help you without actually physically giving you any cash. Another way is even, look at trying to buy with a sibling or a parent or partner.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. That's actually what I'm personally doing myself. So I'm looking to buy with my parent. So it's just an easy way to get your foot in the door. Because obviously, me being not so old myself, I'm not going to have 160 grand in the bank to go and buy a property. So it's good to have that guarantor or someone to be there by your side that obviously can help you through the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And furthermore to that, you don't necessarily need to buy a forever home to begin with. People will sometimes compromise on a location, or they'll compromise on the price point. They might not get, the big freestanding home to begin with, but they might get into a 2 or a 3 or a townhouse bedroom. And if you can get something just to begin with, at least it's a foot in. As you can see, prices, you'll be building equity into your property once you're a homeowner, but not waiting. I think waiting is is probably the biggest risk you can take.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think just on that equity thing, you could even buy out of area. So buying in Sydney is obviously quite expensive. But you saw there in Darwin, it was only taking 11 years in comparison to how it was here. So, I mean, you could look to span out to those areas and build equity on those properties. I'd say in Perth, it's a little bit cheaper to buy, and then look to then buy with that equity back in Sydney. So there's definitely ways to work around it.
Yeah, like the rent vest option where you actually buy, you could maybe live in it for 6 to 12 months. So you get the benefits of calling it your primary place of residence. And then after that, you rent it out. You get the same benefits as setting it up like an investment property. And in the meantime, you've got the flexibility to move around and rent, maybe where your work is or where your where your lifestyle takes you, and you're not tied down. I think that's a lot of concern people have buying their first place, is that they're going to be stuck with it and it's going to weigh them down like a burden. You certainly don't need to, stress when you can, rent it out after, which seems to be a popular method. People move back with family to save. They move back in with, a partner, like a share house, and they don't have the expense of just living on their own with a big mortgage.
That's great.
That's it. Nice and quick little snappy segment today, but mainly there is definitely tips and tricks around this first home buying, and you certainly don't need to wait the full 46 years if you've got these little edges to try and get in a bit earlier.
Yeah, exactly. There's little life hacks that will just creep those years a little bit further forward for you.
There you go. Have a good evening, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.